Hello, welcome back to JM Football. My name is Justin Penik. We are live from the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. Like I said, I'm Justin. This is the Football Grump. That is Bobby Skinner. And then all the way to my left, Robert Schmitz. The crew is back again. We're recapping everything that's happening in the Senior Bowl. This is your day one recap. Fellas, let's start off with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, so the national team is where the quarterbacks are kind of at, because it's really Penik's and, Michael Penik's and Bo Nix, who are talked about as, like, possible first-round guys. And I come out of this really liking Penik's a lot more than Bo Nix, right? Like, and I went, they played each other twice. I went back and watched that Pac-12 championship, and I just didn't like what I saw out of Bo Nix, right? I saw a guy who seemed a little panicked under pressure, didn't set his feet. The ball wasn't as accurate as, some of his completion percentage numbers show. And that really, like, me and Grump were watching it. Not even one-on-ones, just warming up, like, not warming, but just receivers running routes, quarterbacks throwing against air.
Right.
And the ball wasn't super accurate. It didn't have velocity. It wobbled at times. And I thought that showed up into team drills, too. Like, where his first throw of the Bay was a really big miss. And the only completions he had were kind of like some quick game hitches, some checkdowns. I didn't come away from impressed, but I did like Michael Penix.
I would have to agree. Yeah, we're standing right next to you. Michael Penix looks sharp. Even Sam Hartman looked a little bit more sharp throwing the football.
He had like the biggest throw of the day. Not big. The longest throw of the day was Hartman to Roman Wilson.
Right. Yeah. Everybody looked pretty sharp. Now, Bo Nix is not like a slouch quarterback, but throwing the ball is like the main highlight of what we're looking at down here. So he did not. I wouldn't say he shined today, but he didn't look downright awful either. But for the first round pedigree that he has, for us coming down here, it was pretty disappointing.
Robert, anything?
I mean, it's such a funny environment, right? Like, this is exactly the environment where when Malik Willis throws the hell out of the ball, everybody goes, ooh, and then it doesn't really make a difference, because if he's not reading the field outstandingly well at the end of the day, who cares, right? And Bo Nix is exactly the kind of player where the whole advantage is how does he navigate pressure? How does he deal with the contact around him? Can he find the right check down if he doesn't like the throw down field? But man, if we're just talking about how they performed in shorts and in shells, super lackluster from Bo today. I mean, I thought he was the worst quarterback on his team of three. It's an environment that is perfect for Michael Penix. Like, I would even tell you, Bobby, that this might be a day to take with a small grain of salt for a guy like Penix, because his issues stretch much further beyond throwing the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, I don't think Penix had like a day where, now he's a top 10 this looks like a top 10 quarterback, but he did look good, right? Like, he hit the intermediate game, and even like just stuff like, hey, running simple, curl flat, like he got it out on time, good accuracy. Hit a nice over to Roman Wilson, on some play action stuff. So he looked good, but you also saw the critiques of him too, is that even though that you're not getting hit or anything, when the pass rush won, there was not even like really an attempt to go and create on your own. It was basically like, hey, the play's dead. Where, like, and sometimes this is annoying about practice, is when there's pass rush, a QB will just run around and make a crazy throw, even though they're sacked in a real practice. Penix didn't even really try and attempt to do that because it was so obvious, like, oh, here's a sack. So, but I did think Penix looked sharp compared to, so I've been coming since 21. I think Mac Jones is probably the best any quarterback has looked down here. Malik Willis looked pretty good. I think Penix probably looked a little better than Malik Willis did, even though like Malik Willis looked his best in the rain.
Pickett too?
See, Pickett struggled so much in the rain that really turned me off on him, because that kind of played into some of his struggles with the small hands and stuff.
One more thing with Penix, and he actually talked about this on Talking Giants. He talked about this, when we interviewed him, but he's going to be throwing to different receivers. And I think a criticism a lot of these quarterbacks is, you're coming from such a perfect system, perfect line, perfect receivers. I mean, how many of these receivers are going to be drafted? So it was nice to see him come out with new receivers. Everything's brand new. New offense, new everything, and he was the quarterback that did look the best today.
Yeah, and his worst game was against the most pro-style defense in Michigan, and you were playing against pro-style defenses today. So I thought he looked pretty good. Sam Hartman, just quick note, fumbled like 3 snaps, twice in like individual drills and then once in team drills. Does Notre Dame just did they stop going under center this year? I don't know what happened with that.
Who knows? Maybe it was just nervousness. Super weird though.
New center.
I think the guy who may have the most buzz coming out of the national team, though, was Quinyon Mitchell. You were watching DBs a lot out of Toledo. What was your takeaway?
He looked great. I mean, it's been so funny trying to track down tape for a guy like him because you really need the all-22 angle if you're going to talk about corners. And I think he's Mid-America Conference, and so you're only getting tape against like Buffalo against Toledo, and so it's hard to tell, like, how's this guy going to stack up? You come out here to the Senior Bowl, the answer is very well. I mean, he didn't put a foot out of place. Really great about not wasting movement. His jam is really solid, and he stays in the hip pocket of his man really, really well. Like, he had an awesome day. Team drills and one-on-ones.
Yeah, I mean, 11 on 11, he made some really nice plays. Even not just showing the long speed, but even, crashing down on some stuff in the intermediate and in the quick game. He's a guy he's on like a list of like you can bench a lot, you can squat a lot, and you can run like the deer. The 40 is rumored to be around a 4.3, and I don't even feel like I don't even feel like today the speed was on display. It was the other stuff that was on display, the instinctual stuff, crashing down in the quick game, like I said. So really excited about Quinyon Mitchell. One of the players that I was like, I'm expecting you to dominate this week, and did not disappoint day one.
Yeah, there was like a little hitch by Brendan Rice, and he was playing like 5 yards off, and he crashed in and made a play on it.
Almost got a hand on the ball, too. Didn't just force the incompletion. Almost got like a pass deflection on that, too.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of Brendan Rice, he had a good today. Grump, who was the wide receiver that stood out to you the most on the national team?
Yeah, I mean, there were only really 3 wide receivers that did anything for me on the national team so far today, and Brendan Rice was actually one of them. We saw him fight through a lot of very physical defensive back play, which is something that, Robert, you were saying in the live stream earlier that something that you were looking from him. Roman Wilson by far had the biggest day from the national team.
Wide receiver out of Michigan, 5'10". I really want to see him, and he killed it on all 3 levels, Grump.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times when we see the shorter receivers, they kind of dominate in that intermediate and short area, and the long part of the field or any sort of contested situation is not their strong suit. Roman Wilson looked good everywhere today.
Yeah, it was like a lot of times people are like, oh, guy's a good route runner. Okay, what does that mean? Is it the release? Is it at the stem? Is it his ability to challenge vertically? He was really good at the release, and he had that big catch from Sam Hartman.
Yeah,
he had to slow up for.
It was a great release, right? And you had the 2 safeties high, and he's got this middle field defender, and he influences him inside and then pops back up the seam, and then wide open. He had a nice over route from Michael Penik, and then a lot of good stuff in one-on-ones and quick game stuff. So he looked really good. I thought he was the best wide receiver just out of both practices, and that's the position that we always look forward to watching down here. So really liked him. I thought Ricky Pearso, the Florida Gators wide receiver, did some good stuff. Was there any other you could talk on Roman Wilson, but is there any other wide receivers that stood out to you?
We're gonna keep looking for impact when it comes to day 2 receivers. A lot of these guys are still getting accustomed to each other, right? Like, I want to see some more out of Javon Baker. I think that Jacob Cowing could show us a little bit more out of Arizona. But I know a couple of the DBs we haven't mentioned. In particular, I thought Cam Hart had a really awesome day.
Where's he out of?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. So that's cornerback. And then you had the corner out of Oregon that I did think had a solid day, if a little unremarkable. But
Jackson?
Hey, yes, Jackson. His name just escapes me.
Kyrie Jackson.
You get really accustomed to
long corner,
to number,
6'3",
and helmet, right? But then the tight ends didn't do anything particularly crazy. So from skill positions, I don't want to say that's it, but that might be it.
Yeah, the trenches weren't super overwhelming of what you watched too. I thought the Oregon State offensive tackle, I think I got this pronounced right, Tylese Fuaga. He wasn't dominant, but he did have dominant reps in the pass and the run. And then Laeta Latu, I think I got that one right too. He was okay, right? He had some plays where he bent a little bit.
Edge rusher from UCLA.
Yeah, edge rusher out of UCLA, right? He's kind of viewed as a top 10 pick. And you think, okay, top 10 pick, what does he do? Well, he's older. He's had a lot of injury histories. Oh, well, he must be that's the type of guy who kills it down here, right? Who's not just an athletic freak who's, a projection. I just didn't see – I wanted to see him dominate, and we didn't see that. He had some good stuff working outside in, but to me, to be a dominant edge rusher in the NFL, or even like a really good one, you win around the corner.
Yep.
You have to win it. That's how you make a name, is winning around the corner. Outside in is cool in one-on-ones, but that's just not how you win in the NFL, with the way teams slide their protections, with the way quarterbacks can get outside the pocket if you lose that contain. So I wanted to see more out of him.
I would even say that after what we saw today, going out throughout the week, it wouldn't surprise me if Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan actually outshines him this week.
And then Peyton Wilson, the NC State linebacker, who I really like. I have a film breakdown coming out later this week.
Hit 19 miles per hour today, second fastest linebacker.
Me and Justin interviewed him yesterday. I really like this guy, but I also was like, hey, sometimes these types of linebackers can come down here and it's just not a place for them to shine, right? Because they're not able to prep, they're not able to game plan. Man, I thought he was the linebacker who was sniffing stuff out the most, ended up making some plays in the backfield. So I was really excited. I know he's another guy who has medical issues, but my thing with him, and he said it in the interviews too, if I'm on the field, I'm going to be making plays. If I'm on the field for 90 plays, I want to make 90 tackles. So I'm excited to see him grow. Anything else from the national team you guys want to wrap up on?
I mean, I want to go rapid fire through some players. Devontae Walker had a nice touchdown against Kalen King today. 1v1, kind of King mistimes his punch, but does deliver a punch, and Walker's able to get right out of it, win it at the release. 1v1, that's a slant touchdown. Devontae Walker, known as like this vertical threat, and the question is, can he run the full route tree this week? He had some nice plays on 1v1. I'm going to be watching him throughout the week. BYU tackle. And I want to bring him up because I can't say his last name, but he did look good against Latu. Kingsley Suamatia, that's what we're going with. And
sounds right.
It's wrong. It's definitely wrong. That's how you say it. But Kingsley from BYU, number 55 out here in the Senior Bowl, he did have a decent day, and a lot of those reps were going up against Latu. Keith Randolph Jr. from Illinois, he's an interior defensive lineman. He had some nice swim moves. He had some nice plays. Dwayne Carter absolutely pancaked and steamrolled that Wisconsin center
out of Duke. Right? Yeah, he had probably the best one-on-one rep.
He had like the best wow today. Play 1v1 today. And also Gabe Hall from Baylor, another interior defensive lineman that I'm looking at from the national team.
We talked a little bit about Brendan Rice before we move on to the American. He had some really good plays where he finished. The opposite side of that was that the Penn State corner, Johnny Dixon, was like, if there's anyone whose stock dropped, was his, because he was basically trying to tackle him. Like it looked like, that friend who doesn't know how to play basketball, so they just foul the shit out of him. Like, he was going crazy, and then Brendan Rice was still finishing those plays for big catches. So, I hope someone on that team talks like, hey, you're not going to help yourself out here by trying to just bully people in illegal ways.
Right.
Is that a plane?
And it was a great thing to see from Brendan Rice's perspective because, like you mentioned, Grump, I was looking to see him upgrade the physicality. We knew he had the technique. I mean, he's Jerry Rice's son. He obviously knows how to play receiver, right?
Can we say that maybe Kalen King had a bad day today?
I think we should say that Kalen King had a bad day.
He started his day talking to me and Justin, and it just got worse.
It just got worse from there. No, I had major questions about King, and that's why I was kind of glad to even talk to him this morning. Him and Johnny Dixon had like 10-plus pass deflections in 2022, and in 2023, it goes down to the single digits for both of them. Like, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a scheme change. King attributed it to Joey Porter Jr. leaving, and everybody else was being targeted, and not Joey Porter Jr. in 2022. But I thought that there were some issues with King kind of not getting out of his back pedal too late and not transitioning and maybe flipping his hips. So, I wasn't shocked to see King have some issues today. I still like him as a player, but I think he was, maybe being a little overhyped leading into this week.
On the American side, we can move over there. I had one of my most fun days watching the offensive line doing this.
Oh, my God.
My fourth year right now.
Just killed him.
And it was just guys on the right side. It was Tyler Guyton, the 6'7", 328-pound offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Christian Haynes out of UConn, the guard, who was maybe the guy I was like most dialed into coming down into here. And then the Texas offensive tackle, Christian Jones, to a little lesser extent. But Tyler Guyton, the Oklahoma offensive tackle, he looks like a first-round tackle, right? And, you've seen some projections in there, but blah, blah, blah. Like, stuff happens. Yeah, it's quick feet getting out of his stance, right? Just quick. He's patient with his hands. He absorbed the contact. And guys tried spin moves. He was there. He was shutting it down, whether it's Darius Robinson. And he would finish, too, right? A lot of guys will lose the beginning of the rep, but they'll just take them and throw them to the ground, and people say, well, great rep. That wasn't him. He was shutting it down from start to finish. But he did have one bad rep where he tried the jump set, tried to get quick out there, got a little overzealous, and the guy beat him inside. But I even like the fact that he's changing up. It's like you don't see quick sets really in one-on-one atmospheres, and he at least tried to work that. And then Christian Haynes, the guard out of UConn, they did give him two plays at center. One was really bad, shouldn't be at center. but at guard, he was quick to fire in the defensive lineman's chest. And then once he had hands on guys, which he did from the beginning reps, was able to sink his hips and just dominate the blocks.
Such a good anchor in base.
Yeah, was working to the second level in the run game. And then Texas offensive tackle Christian Jones, I thought looked pretty good too.
Incredible, man. I keep on getting this guy's first name wrong.
Bo
Limmer. Awesome. Arkansas, center out of Arkansas, interior offensive lineman. I thought he was nasty. I thought he really had a nasty day. It was really fun. It was fun watching all these, especially the interior guys on the American team, take care of business.
Layden Robinson, the Texas A&M guard, really lived up to what I thought about him coming in, where it's just, hey, may not be the fastest, but dude's got power in those hands, and he can shock defensive linemen. Justin, on the other side, the defensive line was very disappointing, right? It's like this drills are made for you, and the offensive line dominated it, right?
Yeah, I don't really have a main takeaway of
because they were bad, like they weren't stringing together moves. Darius Robinson, the Mizzou edge, 6'5", 286 pounds, like freak. He's strong. You go watch him on film. There's really good plays. He's strong. He has good plays against good competition. And me and Justin said on our Talking Giants podcast on Tuesday morning that, man, it feels like 4 years in a row where there are guys who fit his mold, who have, we said the exact same things about, whether it was Patrick Jones out of Pitt in 2021, Keon White and out of Georgia Tech, and Isaiah McGuire out of Mizzou last year, where they come down here and they think they're just going to bully guys, and they have no bag, and they don't do that. And that's what happened with Darius Robinson. He had no good pass rush moves except for one time where they put him over the guard in a one-on-one, and he won, right? But even in that win, he was wide out. Right, like it's like that's not how you win. And when it's an 11-on-11, he did have some good plays in the run. But I was just, it's that prototype just comes down here and disappoints consistently, and it really bothers me.
I'll even do you one better. I thought Tavondre Sweat wasn't even that impressive, and that was a guy who pound for pound should be dominating that.
Yeah.
He didn't have a bad practice. I don't want to give that perception at all, but he didn't dominate. There were times where he was stonewalled or struggled a little bit, and he should have been. I mean, it's hard not to notice him. He's a huge guy. So, I mean, I was laser focused on him, and it was, I wouldn't say disappointing. I guess it was disappointing for him, but enlightening for guys like Christian Haynes, etc.
Do you want to move to some skill position players?
Yeah, what would you see on the skill groups, Robert?
Well, I thought the tight ends were awesome. I mean, I really did. I thought Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State, I thought Jared Wiley out of TCU, and Jaheim Bell out of Florida State all had really nice days in their own individual, let's call it lane, right? Jaheim Bell is such a funky player to talk about because, for all intents and purposes, he's just a very, very, very big receiver.
He's
right?
6 foot, he's the shortest, you could say, H-back fullback, but it's like that's the H-back fullbacks. They don't run corner routes a lot of the times, right? And that's what he was able to do. He even had a nice win versus Cam Kinchins in one-on-ones. I thought he had the best rep. Cam Kinchins is one of the few juniors down here, a guy I really liked. So he was impressed, but it's just what do you do with a 6'1" tight end? You can put him at H-back, but how many times is he going to be running the route tree that he is capable of doing?
Mm-hmm. And then I thought Sinnott looked awesome. I mean, really top to bottom. He's a quality run blocker. He can pass block, and he looked like one of the best receiving tight end options that we've had here, including Jaheim Bell, who I thought they went back and forth with different types of routes, right? As far as, the corners in the American League suffered a little bit just because the American team had a couple of late dropouts, in particular Wake Forest, Galen Carson, who is no longer part of the roster, and so they had to bring in a bunch of guys that, if I could be blunt with you, I haven't scouted the kid from Fresno State. I haven't scouted a couple of the kids that we saw get added really, really late, and so watching them live, they seemed fine, but it felt as if, to me, Grump, this was a team and a coach that didn't know quite how to feature a big group of safeties, an unusual group, 6 safeties that they were trying to get reps, but one-on-ones weren't really built for safety play, and so they did their best, but it did feel sometimes as if guys like, Xavier Legette, there's a bunch of receivers that we'll see, big names that we hope would do a little bit more tomorrow, but Ladd McConaughey is really the one who I think shined amongst this group, and he did pretty well for himself.
Yeah, the Georgia wide receiver who, a lot of people have talked about, has had a lot of success down there. It's been a huge piece for their offense. He just looked good, right? He did look like he did have the best day. He's just a good route runner. You don't look at him and say, oh, this guy's going to be one of the best route runners in the NFL. But he's going to be really good. And, I don't know. The conversation's always weird. It's where do those guys end up being drafted? I hate to Hunter Renfrow, right?
Right.
Good player. I think he's valuable. Where do you draft Hunter Renfrow? Like, we all knew he thought he'd end up succeeding. But I think that'll be some of the conversation around Ladd McConkey. But
one thing I do want to talk about with Ladd McConkey, though, is as good of a route runner as he is, he can still do a lot more at all of the break points along his route. So he's not like super duper crisp, but he is a smooth route runner. He is fast. He is agile. There is still a lot more to clean up before he enters a level, I think, where you're talking about like a day 2 pick.
Yeah, he knows how to set guys up, right? And that's what you look for in the slot, right? It's like, if this player is playing this leverage, I'm going to do this. If he's playing this way, I'm going to do that. Let's talk about Xavier Legette, who is someone else really excited to watch out of here. South Carolina wide receiver, who was listed at 6'3" on the South Carolina roster, comes in, measures at 6'1", but he's almost 220 pounds on the 2, and he plays big, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he plays like he's 6'3", 6'4", has all these highlight plays, high pointing the ball. I thought that it was up and down, right? Like, I saw some things I wanted to see. Like, I thought he was very good at the release, like very effective. Like wide receiver releases. Mm-hmm. I thought he did some good stuff setting stuff up throughout the route. But we also didn't see the stuff that we love about Legette, which is those highlight plays.
Right.
Now, the quarterbacks, I thought, made it tough for him.
Yeah, they did.
So I'm not – I want to talk about him because, again, I think he could end up being like one of the most talked about guys coming out of here. But I'm not judging him off day one because I saw good things. We just didn't see the wow that we've come to know Legette for.
On the live stream, we talked about Legette we talked about Rashee Rice as a disappointment from last year. Mm-hmm. I remember Rashee had a fine day. We just wanted him to have a great day. And that might be what we're saying about Legette when all's said and done when it comes to day one. Where did he have a bad day? No. He just wasn't spectacular.
And even I would even say, like, to me, he did have a much better day than Rashee Rice, because I thought Rashee Rice did struggle the first day, and the second day wasn't kind of like, and then the third day I thought was his best day, where Rashee Rice had some reps where, like, this is ugly. I don't think Legette had those ugly reps,
no.
But you saw there was a time we watched Grump where he beat his guy,
Yeah,
but he wasn't able to stack the corner.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't able to run away, and it's like, okay, do you have the speed to, even if you have a good release and have the size, are you going to have to be living as a contested catch guy, which there's guys that do that
right.
well, but you don't want to, you don't want to be drafting that at the end of the first round, a contested catch type of guy.
And I would even say that there were a couple times where, because of an underthrown ball, times where he beat guys, became a contested catch, and he didn't come down with the ball.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of, contested catch guys, 6'6" FSU wide receiver Johnny Wilson. Maybe I was a little disrespectful in my tweet about him. He was a DB highlight reel. Like, anytime, in one-on-ones, like, okay, the DB is just going to be able to get into the catch space. And then we watched him, like we were talking about it, has this great start, right? Gets physical, wins the release, stacks the corner. It's like, oh, he just beat him, right? This is the strength.
Got him.
And the corner's just able to recover because he's not able to run away from it at all, and ends up being a pass breakup. I think because of his size, he was someone that people are going to be very excited about. He is someone who, like, maybe you wanted to come in here and buy the hype in. I don't think I can.
Grump, is he Elijah Higgins? That was my comparison when I was thinking last
But at least
night.
Elijah Higgins ran good routes.
That big?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they
was like 6'4",
they literally converted him to tight end at the Senior Bowl last year because he was just that slow.
So and Wilson, like, is taller than him, right?
Yes.
He's 2 inches taller than what Higgins was last year at Stanford. So
I think Wilson will be drastically faster than Higgins, at least when it comes to the stuff that matters. Like, he may run closer to a 4.5 or a 4.6 or something, whereas Higgins, I remember being particularly slow.
Yeah, for sure.
But the biggest problem that Johnny has, at least from what I'm seeing, is that he is a big man that plays smaller than some of these small people that play bigger, right? And so you end up pretty disappointed. Can we say that? Where Alan Lazard is a 6'5" guy, behemoth, that plays to his size at the NFL level, and people even think he's disappointing. But
yeah, I don't like him at all.
It's worth mentioning that Alan Lazard was a UDFA. So if that's the name that you start to draw a comparison to, well, that's not really great territory. We'll hope for a better day from Johnny tomorrow.
All right, fellas, I think we should start to wind down soon.
Yeah, we're good. Wrap it up.
But did we talk about quarterbacks at all from the American side? I mean, they're obviously extremely underwhelming compared to the national team.
I want to wait because they just ran the ball, they ran draw plays, and then they threw quick passes. Like, there was really nothing to really take away.
Hey,
there may be some day 3 value there with some of those guys, so I don't want to write them off as being useless. I really don't, but from
wanna
this
see them-
practice, it was useless to judge them.
And I
because
think that's
they
fair.
They didn't ask him to do anything today.
And I think that's fair because we were going to get comments about, hey, how about those America team quarterbacks? But
Look, if there's one
really much
player,
takeaways.
if there's one player that we haven't talked about, but we need to talk about, it's the guy that was launching consistent nukes in the national practice, and that was Torrey Taylor out of Iowa, the punter. If you haven't watched this punter,
all right, that's
you
that's
need to
extreme.
watch this punter.
that's how much of a football guy Robert Schmitz is. And we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Let us know what players we should be watching out for. If you're a Senior Bowl lover, if you're a college football lover, like, comment, subscribe. Peace. Thanks. JM Football. We'll see you tomorrow. Senior Bowl, Mobile, Alabama. Goodbye.